now. Uh, Sarah, Ali, and Jan-Ake, can I please ask you to join back?
Hello, Ali.
Hi, Ali. Okay, just for you to know that we are also live on the Facebook. So if anybody wants to view it on the Facebook, you can. I've shared the links as well. I will share the link here. You can also see this session live on Facebook. Welcome everybody to this most amazing, literally most amazing. Discussion that we are going to have on a very unique and different topic, probably something that you might not have heard or discussed in the way that we are going to discuss with me today. And I would like to welcome them one by one. With me today is first of all Mr. Jan-Ake. He is uh, I'm going to just give you a little bit of brief of Mr. Jan-Ake. Jan-Ake is from Sweden. He is one of those few people who are the masters of negotiation. He has spent more than 30 years of experience of complex sales and negotiation in international settings. He has lived in all continents, mostly Australia, Latin America, Middle East, and Asia. Of course, Europe, he is where he is from. He is today's leading expert in sales communication and intercultural communication, in especially one of the leading experts of Europe. He has diligently hired consultants and trainers and trained them as well. He's a teacher at universities, various universities, private sector arena around the world. He is an engineer, an author, an NLP trainer, mind trainer, and a certified ICT coach. Uh, I will just, before I move forward for the other introductions, I will have a few requests to make here. We will initially, the first 30 minutes, we are going to discuss on the topic, and then we will open the floor for Q&A. We already have a lot of questions that you have sent to us. We have over about 30 questions. We will be attending each question one by one. Uh, Please keep your mics muted. If and when you need to ask a question, I would request you have a facility called raise your hand. So you can raise your hand and I will allow your open your mic and let you speak. My one humble request would be to keep your real name intact, like iText iPhone. If I request you to please change it to your real name, because real names will mean a better understanding of each other. This session is going to be for you. This session is meant for you, and it is an interactive session. We will make it successful when we all participate and we ask our questions and get our answers. Let me introduce now Sarah. Sara Nystrom is from Sweden as well. She is the executive director of Body Language Center of Body Language, the world's leading body language training for business, body language master trainer, and impact coach, and a mind trainer. She's a leading expert in microfacial expressions. She has given trainings around the world, including United Nations, and worked as team leaders at Swedish Migration Agency for 13 years, receiving and communicating with people all around the world on a daily basis, has a profound interest and passion for communication and cultures. And the most interesting aspect, she speaks 8 languages, which makes her even more culturally available to a lot of cultures. And if I'm not wrong, one of those languages is Swahili, which is not a very commonly known language in this part of the world, but she speaks all of them. Our third participant of the panel, Mr. Ali Zaidi, Executive Director at Best Business Solutions, BBS Lahore. That is his current work. He is also consulting with Grid International, Pakistan chapter, to run culture and audits of organizations, to analyze individual leadership styles, and to advise clients' establishments on a structured leadership and development systematic change management process to transform their culture and staff relationships. Over 20 years of hardcore L&D and OD strategic HR experience, including 4 years in overseas Qatar. He headed L&D portfolio of leading organizations including Descon and NetSol Technologies prior to start of this entrepreneurial career in 2019. His core strengths are in OD, change management, culture, employee relations, organizational problem solving, and linking. Postgraduate specialization in HR from University of Punjab and pursuing Ivy League certification in change leadership from Cornell. Received international training by AOTS, solving human and organizational programs, Osaka, Japan. Certified trainer and facilitator for Carlton Advanced Management Institute, USA. Public speaking mastery certificate from Dale Carney Training. Facilitated countless workshops from both public and in-house of flagship leadership. And the thing goes on and on and on. And he's an approved consultant and trainer for SMIDA. Facilitated workshop with senior leadership for formulating SWOT goals and strategies with SMEs. And as a visiting faculty, he's taught HR to executive MBA programs at IBEM, UET, and UMT. I welcome you three on board, Jan-Ake, Sara, and Ali.
Aka shukriya, Ali.
I love this
Thank
one.
you.
Aapka shukriya. My audience loves this too. When you see
Yeah, thank you, Ali, for having me.
By the way, let me tell you one thing before we take Jan-Ake on. Ali is kind enough to be with us at this hour. He just lost his aunt yesterday, so he's there in the funeral, and he is joining us in his car just outside the graveyard, if I'm not wrong. So, Ali, we our commiserations, and may Allah bless her and give you all patience to bear the loss.
Yeah, thank you, Ali.
Welcome. And we have Jan-Ake with us. Jan-Ake, are you there? Your mic is switched off, Jan-Ake. You have to switch on your mic.
Yes, it is. Okay, do you hear me?
Yes, now it's loud and clear,
Fine.
Jan-Ake.
Fine.
Okay, so Jan-Ake, I'll start my talk. In fact, I will start my talk with Ali. In fact, my first question, because the topic that we had envisioned and we had talked about was culturally negotiating non-verbally. Now, this covers three aspects: culture, negotiation skills, and non-verbal communication, and impact of that on our communication. So, Ali, let me start with you because you are the culture expert, and then we'll go to the cross cultures. Ali, what do we mean by culture, and what impact does culture have on our negotiations or our communication? Let me put it this way.
Well, Ali, thank you very much for having me. As part of this August panel. I am not an culture expert, but I am studying culture and trying to understand different culture and its impact on organizations. So, culture is a very huge subject, and there are so many definitions of culture. I think the most famous one and the easy one, and my favorite one is culture is the way we do things around here, be it a society, be it in your home, be it in an organization, be it in anywhere. The way we do things defines our culture, and our behaviors, our attitudes, our actions, what we eat, what we how we dress, how we talk, everything that circles around culture, and that defines culture. And in my view, cultures plays a very important role while negotiating. Culture has a huge role in the bottom line of organizations, but since your topic is revolving around negotiations, so let's specifically talk about culture impact on negotiations. So as you know, different cultures, there are a few do's and don'ts, and if we don't know those do's and don'ts or their normal way of behaving, then we can easily lose negotiations. If we don't understand how they actually operate. Let me give you an example. One of my previous organizations, they work very closely with Japanese. So we ran a JV with the Japanese firm for 10 good years. And we generally do projects, very, multi-million dollar projects with Japanese people. And whenever we try to negotiate on certain aspects of a project, they generally, Japanese people, just before we wanted to conclude, they just move away from that negotiation table. And initially we thought that it's just something very rude, because we have discussed quite a few things and we are about to close the deal, and they just said we are going away. So we thought it's very, very rude. And then we tried to understand, and we understood that that's something which they actually do. They they go back, they take a step back, they discuss among themselves, how to close that deal, and this is their way to give respect. We thought that's rude, but they thought that it's giving respect, because whatever they have discussed, they want to absorb, they want to understand that everybody among their group is actually aligned with whatever is discussed, so that there is no going back. Because Japanese, they are very, very particular about whatever they say, they actually means it. So understanding culture really help you when it comes to negotiating with any other any other culture. So that's
Great.
my take.
Thank you very much, Ali. I just had a question from one of the listeners, and he's saying, "Sir, at least introduce yourself." Okay, my name is Mohammed Ali. I am an NLP trainer. In fact, I share a lot of my profile is shared like Jan-Ake. I'm a mechanical engineer. Spent 8 years in oil and gas, Schlumberger and Shell. 13 years of my own retail business in Middle East. Had over 70 outlets. Now I'm doing NLP trainings, body language master trainer. I am a life coach, a career coach. I actually love to call myself, although I'm an author as well, but I love to call myself a human engineer and a change agent. So this is my brief introduction. Okay, after my introduction, because that was a question, I want to throw one question to you directly based on what Ali said. And yes, cultures do play a lot of role in our negotiations, in our communication. With your years and years of experience, and by living in different cultures, what have you understood? In fact, if I translate this question from the one of the questions that we have received, it says understanding cross cultural effective interactions and their impact on negotiations. So what would be your take on that?
It was interesting to listen to Ali. I will not go into and comment exactly what he said about Japanese, because when he explained the Japanese situation, I immediately started to think about the Swedes, because Swedes and Japanese are quite similar in a couple of aspects, especially those that Ali brought up. Namely, consensus is very important in both the Japanese culture and the Swedish culture. In the Swedish culture, even more than the Japanese culture. So just an example, which was very interesting, Ali, that you brought up. Yes, to answer your question, Mohammed, having great experience worldwide from negotiations, little bit the same intentions and background as Sara has, that my adventures around the world has been very much based on curiosity, and also based very much on respect. And it's very strange when you think about it, because many people ask me, why didn't you have any problems? You lived in South America, was this and that, and you know, things took 5 days longer than in Sweden or whatever, you know, and then you suddenly get frustrated and you don't seem, oh, it doesn't work the way I want, and oh, you know, I wish I was home in Sweden and it works better there or whatever. But you know, my big advice to anyone going somewhere else apart, away from its own culture, is to what do you call it when you drive a car? When you change gear, you put in the what's the name of that one? when you the free when you
Freeway.
in order to be able to change gear, you have to push one pedal.
Clutch.
You know?
Clutch.
Yeah.
The clutch, exactly.
Yeah.
Thanks. So, you know, put in the clutch and say, okay, I'm here, interesting, and also respect is a very important word. So if you have ideas that some people are worse than you or better than you or dumber than you or smarter than you, or well, smarter than you is okay, because that you signal through your body language. But if you think they are dumber than you, they notice that. So if you have that, you know, and then it comes into values and all these kind of things, you know. So it's really a question of mindset. Do you think that people are worse, less intelligent than you because of race or because of color or because of religion or because of whatever? Then you have a real problem, I would say. Then when it comes to, and that problem shows through body language, which Sarah will talk about, whether you like it or not, because people sense that, people feel that, you know, they feel that this guy, he thinks he is superior than what I am. Anyway, if you're over that herd, then I think everything, then you have a road in front of you. Then it's just a question of communication. And communication, which we will go into, is more an understanding that we think differently and accepting that fact. And then you can move into the next step where you see that even if you're in the same culture, you have problems communicating. I'm sure you're aware of that.
Yes.
Even with your husband and wife and your kids or whatever that you live with on a daily basis, you have misunderstandings. So it's a lot of dimensions, and the cultural dimension is one of them. Yeah.
Great. And as you mentioned that we will be coming back to the negotiation part a little bit more
Yeah.
later. Sarah, my question actually is forwarding on the same thing. You have dealt as an immigration officer. You have dealt people by speaking so many languages, which is very, very unique. And "Aapka shukriya" is your favorite statement. I love to hear that from you.
I learned it
Uh,
yesterday. No, I actually knew it before.
okay. But my question, Sarah, is that as Jan-Ake mentioned, non-verbal, how much role does that play when it comes to cultural differences? Because sometimes there will be a cultural difference and non-verbal of one culture and the other, and when it comes to communication and negotiation. So what is the importance of, or what is the linkage between, is long non-verbal the missing link, or it's just one of the clicks?
I'd say that the non-verbal, thank you, Ali, and hello, everybody. Pleased to be here. Great to meet you all. So I'd say that the is definitely the missing link, and a much bigger part of our communication is non-verbal than we may think it is. There is actually a study that was conducted that said that only 7% of our communication is verbal and the rest is non-verbal. Yeah, and 55% is body language and 38% is our voice. So it's problematic to say exact percentage, and we don't need to focus so much on the exact percentage. What is interesting, however, is that a big part of communication is nonverbal. So don't focus too much on the exact number. So a big part of our communication, nonverbal, and nonverbal communication, as Jan-Ake stated before, is actually subconscious. So we constantly emit signals subconsciously, and we also pick up on those signals all the time, and we're not even aware of it. That's why it's so important to think about what we have on the inside. Like Jan-Ake also said, our attitudes will shine through all the time, whether we want it or not. We may think that we can hide it, but we can never, especially with the microfacial expressions that we may talk about later. We cannot hide them. And key to a great communication is to master your inside, your inner climate.
Great. Ali, you have listened to what these two had to say. Now, I will take one question from one of our audiences who have already sent in, and that will be really directed to you. He's saying, and the question I'm going to read as it is, that paralingual or non-verbal communication and cultural barriers in negotiation. Do you really think it is the actually most important thing when it comes to understanding culture, or it should be the other way around, which means that, and I'm actually trying to translate what he has written because he has given some bullets. What he's saying is that if we understand the culture first, then we should negotiate, or we should negotiate first and then understand the culture. Basically, that's the crux of the question.
I think very, very easy question, and the answer is that we have to understand the culture first if we really want to negotiate. Because if we don't understand the culture, you may at times offend the other person by your actions or by your behaviors through your communications. So that's why we need to understand where that person is coming from, what is acceptable in their norms. So while understanding that, you actually package your negotiation in a way which is not offending, which they can actually receive.
But Ali, sorry to interrupt you here. Playing devil's advocate, does it mean that if I have to go to Sweden and I have to do a negotiation, I should first be spending 6 years or 1 year or 6 months there, understanding culture, and then only start negotiating? Is that what you are referring to?
No, absolutely not. But you should know what's acceptable in that culture. Or what's if you do something which can actually offend them. So if you are not aware of those little cues, then you are asking for trouble in your negotiations, because you will start with a disadvantage. um, Let me give you an example. Because it's Sara's subject area, but the little I know about nonverbal is this mean, can you see this, Ali? Right? Yeah. This means quite a different meaning to different cultures. So if you are I'm again giving you example of Japan because I work with Japanese people. In Pakistan, maybe in US, I am not sure about Sweden. This means that you have done fantastic job.
Sweden
Superb,
too.
excellent. Yeah, but when you go to Japan and you are negotiating and you are giving this signal to a Japanese, it means money. It's not okay. It's not fantastic.
Interesting.
This means money. So if you want to commend a person, and the counterpart is Japanese, and you don't understand, and you are giving this non-verbal clue to that person, so it gives you very different connotation and very different meaning. So that is the few things which you need to know before entering into a negotiation when it comes to very, very different culture. So that's my take.
But Ali, then the question still remains the same, and probably I think I'll put this question to Jan-Ake for this time. Do we need to spend time first to is it the only way to understand culture is by living in that country, or there are other ways to understand, quicker ways to understand cultural norms, especially when it comes to business negotiations. Okay.
Yeah. Interesting, Ali. Just to give you one more example of what Ali talked about, if you show this one in Australia, you're in big trouble, I tell you. I showed it to a truck driver once who was a little bit too close to me on the back, and I thought I was going to get killed, it's exactly like Ali says. You have to be very, very careful with all these things, and you have to. Yes, indeed, it's very important to study a little bit before you go to a new culture. I can give one example. I lived in Saudi Arabia for a number of years, and we went there in the 70s. That was in those days, Saudi Arabia was quite primitive, I can tell you. Still is in some aspects. And we actually got courses exactly in those aspects that Ali is talking about, do's and don'ts. We usually call that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't take ham with you. Don't drink liquor when you go out in the town and smell liquor. And yeah, a lot of things you should not do. Don't take photos of women in the souk and so on, but that is, and I think that's what you're getting at, Ali, that is one dimension, do's and don'ts. But when we go down to cultures, and when you go down to more intimate cultures, like Ali says here, where you're doing business with Japanese and they think I'm only thinking about money or this and that. Do we think about cooperation, how we should work together in the future? Do we trust each other? Trust is a very important thing in different cultural aspects. How do you build trust with one culture? How do you build trust with another culture? Ali took up Japan. I can take up China. China is very special in many regards, and I usually say to Swedish companies, startups and smaller companies going to China, because the Swedes, they think that if you get everything on a paper, it's very clear in an Excel sheet. You got all the figures, you got all the drawings, you got this and that, and you are going to do business, and you send that over digital, email and what have you, and you think it's going to work. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. And you have lawyers writing contracts and looking at commas and we're going to have that and that, and Chinese don't worry about the contract. You know how Chinese look at a contract? They take up the contract, say, oh, very interesting. It's a very thick document. It's 150 pages. Let's see how it goes to work together. That they see a contract as an LOO, a letter of intent, LOI. Let's see how we can work together. And if it doesn't work, we don't care about any contracts. Go and get stuffed. If it works, then things works. And how do you get things to work with Chinese? You go there. And you learn to know them, and you sit together with them, and you work with them, and you build confidence. That's the word. Confidence is the key word. If you have confidence with the Chinese, they trust you. Everything works. You need no contracts. You need no specific drawings. Things works out. If they don't trust you, nothing works. So that's the kind of things I think trust is a very important aspect when it comes to cultural differences. And building trust is
Is the key.
yeah, and it's universal, really. It's universal because it hangs together with your thinking and how you view the world and how you view different people and how you view different religions, how you view different colors and what have you. It's a mindset.
Absolutely. Thank you
Mm.
very much. Okay, Sarah, I take this further with you because trust is the key element in any conversation, in any communication, may it be husband, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, parents and children, or colleagues at work. So, trust, how can we ensure that our non-verbal is actually, you can say, congruent towards that trust?
Mm. Uh, well, it's almost like I want to say the same thing I said before. Our inside. If our body language and the signals that we emit do not correlate with what's going on the inside and what we feel on the inside and what we think in our brains, then it's not going to correlate. We have something that we call the non-congruency model, that when we teach, that helps us to focus on the non-verbal signals, because we so much tend to focus on the words, right? But we need to go deeper than that, actually. So if we want to have a great communication and build a trust and a good relations, it needs to correlate what we feel on the inside and what we emit. It doesn't mean, of course, that we need to feel. We cannot change what we feel, but we need to communicate what we feel then. That makes us great communicators.
So how? Okay. So what means, and that's where I lead to my, which leads me to this question. He's saying that non-verbal is a must at times. It forms a basis to resolve the conflicts led by successful negotiations.
Mm-hmm.
But how can we learn to use our non-verbal more effective?
Oh, by letting us train you would be my answer. So it's actually possible to increase because we all have a gut feeling, right? We all have that. That's human, right? But what happens is that we pick up on it subconsciously. But we can increase the ability very much to read and to make it conscious, actually, by training the eye, by training the brain to pick up on the different signals. So there are 7 different micro expressions. So if we talk about the facial expressions, so micro expressions, they are hidden emotions that we can see through involuntary muscle movements in the face. And all humans have them. There is not a single culture that doesn't have them. So they are same for all cultures. I often get that question. What does differ, though, is that in some cultures, for example, Japan, I go to your favorite culture, Ali, they learn to hide, to mask their emotions, usually with a smile. If we go to more outspoken cultures, for example, the Philippines or Latin America, they show them very clearly. But they are the same. It's just that in some cultures, they're a bit more tricky to see. And if we are untrained, we may see the smile. But the smile was not the real emotion. The smile was there to mask the true emotion. So we teach you to see the real emotions, actually. Was that an answer?
Great. That's right. Great.
A long one.
Okay. I'm going to go to the nitty-gritties now, and okay, I'm going to take your take now. You are the king of, or the father of negotiations, as we call them, as call you. And now, what are the top 3 or top 5 tips when we are negotiating, especially if it's a cross-cultural negotiation? So across the table, how can I be an effective negotiator? Let me ask you this.
Was that a question to me directly?
Yes, Jan-Ake. That was a question
All
to you
right.
directly.
Yeah. Negotiation is about agreeing on something. Negotiation is a part of human existence. We have negotiated from the very beginning on the East African savanna, where we had to cooperate in order to survive. That's basically what it's all about. We are what we maybe not everyone likes to hear the word animal. We are animal of same as the wolf. And the lions, for instance, they hunt together. We have to cooperate. We have to understand each other in order to survive. Simply, so question is really about survival. Less pain, more joy, more and make life as easy as possible for us the time we are here on Earth. So, to take it a very basic. Then, of course, negotiation in business, and as we move along and we are becoming more sophisticated, we are trading, we are agreeing with each other and buying things, selling things, and agreeing on things, contracts and different clauses in contracts and so on. But it's really the same thing. We have to agree on things in order to make things good for both of us. Remember, it's not only you who are going to survive, but I'm also going to survive. And that's where the win-win idea comes. And many people say, yeah, win-win, business doesn't work that way, either you grab it or you don't, and if you don't, you're going to be a loser for the rest of your life and so on. But no. People who understand that relationships, trust, cooperation works in the long run. For joy, fulfillment in life, we are having fun together, we are helping each other in the future, we are doing things to help the world or whatever, which we are working on here, our team. So, again, it comes back to mindset. And I not only think, because I know, having run courses with thousands of people over the last 16, 17 years, which I have, I see the difference between people who have had a mindset of negotiation is a question of win-lose. If the other party goes out crying, I've done a good job. No, you haven't, because you're going to have problems the next day or the next month or the next year. But inevitably, you're going to have problems. If the other party that you have agreed on doing something together with is upset, is angry with you, or seeks revenge or whatever, you're going to have problems. And, business life is full of that. It's people are suing each other, people are fighting with each other, and a lot of energy is going into that, instead of people trusting each other, helping each other, doing things together to be fruitful, both of you.
So what would be the top 5 elements when you start negotiating? One, as you said, as very, very clearly, is win-win. Mindset. Second would be win-win.
Four of them, and the fifth one is communication.
Okay, great. So I was just trying to summarize it for the audience. So we said mindset, win-win. This one, understanding.
I know you want 5, but I said mindset.
Okay, sorry.
But never mind. That's
Sorry, yeah,
why I want to pinpoint that mindset is
Miscommunication.
so extreme, and
yeah.
mindset is communication. Yeah, exactly. But then I can go into more practical details on you of course you have to prepare, you have to look at the needs of both and what's the needs and so on. You have to look at your strength. You have to set goals and all these kind of things. But that's a level below mindset,
Great,
because
great.
mindset is crucial to everything.
Great. I think we'll, before I move to Ali for the next question, I think we can also take questions. So if any of the viewers who want to basically ask any question directly, please feel free, raise your hand, and I'll open your mic so you can ask any question. Till that time, if we get, or you can write down your question, whichever suits you. Till the time, I'll move to the next question in my list that was sent by somebody, one of our viewers, or who's interested, and he said that, in fact, Sarah, this question is addressed to you. The question is saying, how do you culturally show love for family and friends using your non-verbal?
How I culturally show. That was an
Yeah, not you,
interesting question. I don't
not
understand
you,
really the.
not you personally. What he means is that you means that how do people, how
No,
can
no,
we
I
show?
understand it's not me personal, but I heard culturally. How do I
Yes,
culturally show? So I don't really, I'm
yes.
not sure I understand the question really.
Culturally show to family, and family is, every culture has a different way, but mainly is
Hmm.
friends. He's saying that how do we culturally
Oh,
show?
you mean
Uh,
the difference in different
yes,
cultures.
that's right.
Hmm. Very interesting.
And
Uh,
part, it has two parts. The second
mm,
part is that eye contacts, facial
yeah,
expressions, gestures,
yeah.
and postures.
So
What do they mean in cultures?
Hmm. Obviously, there are different ways of showing love. We can all agree on that. In some cultures, it's acceptable to have physical contact in public, whereas in other cultures, that's completely unthinkable. Yeah, unheard of. That would be one big difference. Yeah, it's something that you only do behind a closed door. Yeah, showing this affection. And then we have the thing with eye contact as well. And that's not only when it comes to lovers, but also in general, the eye contact can be very different in different cultures. And that's a key thing, I think, why you should study, like Ali said before, very, very correctly. You have to know some things about culture before you go and do business in that country. I'm sure there are hundreds of books to read on a specific country, right? So you go and you do your study before, so you at least know, is it good to have eye contact? Okay, it's good to have eye contact maybe with younger people but not with older people, and that is maybe very important in a certain culture, and so not to offend anybody. Now I'm sort of getting away from the topic. We talked about love, but love is also relations, I'm not sure I'm answering your question really, but
No, no, you are,
I'm
you are
just
on the
getting
spot.
to that because I don't want to talk too long, which you know that I can. Uh, so different in different cultures, yes, definitely.
Great. Ali, the next question I'm going to put to you, because it says, how do we know that what is a standard in when it comes to
Uh,
culture negotiations, or anything? How do we draw the standard that these are the standards or bare minimum to start with?
I think the answer is to, you need to do some homework, because whenever you are entering into a territory which is not familiar, so you need to do some homework and you need to understand. And as Sarah said, there are hundreds of books available, and there is, Auntie Google. You can just take help
No, no, no,
from that
no, 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 Ali,
aunt.
Ali, no, no, Ali, no, Ali. I'm sorry. I think let me rephrase that question, because what
Yeah.
she just sent me a message on the WhatsApp on the same thing, and so I was just going, which is more detailed compared to what was written online. What she means is that, are there any, like, there's a manual? Is there any standard manual for something like, this is the bare minimum standards that we have to maintain, or it is really that different we have to understand in different cultures?
Well, of
Is
course,
there like a Bible? Is there like a Bible of standards?
there is, I won't say that there is, a Bible, because the emotions are, every part of the world, they have same emotions. They have anger, they have love, they have fear, they have hate. So, but what triggers those emotions, we need to know, and there is no single, manual which can, create that fear or that love or that affection emotion. If you really want to trigger that emotion, so there are different levels, levers in different parts of the world. So you need to know which lever you should be using to, trigger that particular emotion which you need. So emotions will be common, but how you gonna capitalize those emotion, or you need to know, what's working in that particular culture, or what is acceptable in that particular culture. Just like Sara said, having an eye contact, with in Asian, with an elders, will be very disrespectful at times. People feel that, you are, having eye contact with elders. But if you don't, have eye contact in many parts of the world, they feel disrespectful, that you are not, or they feel that you are hiding something.
Okay,
So there is no single,
great.
answer
Yeah,
to one person. But again,
Asma has just sent a message on here saying standards are basic, I believe. Smile, eye contact, politeness, genuine respect. Of course, Asma, that's absolutely right. And let me break one myth for everybody around here. I'm sure my panel also knows that, but just for the viewers, a lot of people think that someone who is not making an eye contact is either lying or being disrespectful. Forget about the culture right now. Even research says that humans do not maintain, on an average, I'm not saying specifics, on an average, humans do not maintain more than 25% of, in a conversation, their eye contacts. So if somebody is not having a real eye contact, it scientifically, research wise, does not mean any disrespect or any such thing. However, yes, it is definitely one of the uh, aspects that different cultures see it differently. For example, if my son or your son in Sarah looks in your eyes and talks to you, you might find it, you want him to see you. That's what more in European culture, it is more of an eye contact. Here, if my son looks at me, I'll say, "Huh, you are staring at me, look down." And when he looks down, I will say, "Hey, why you are not looking at me? Look up." And then the child is confused. What do I do? So this is this is one of the paradoxes of the cultural understanding. I would actually like if somebody else, Asma or Dr. Kamal, Muniza, Sajid, if any of you want. Okay, Sajid has said a question, and Sajid, I am expecting this question is for direct living experience is the best source to learn about cultures, for what is acceptable and what is not. This is exactly what I was coming to. And I'm not sure, and that's I any of three of you can take on this question on the panel. If it is like egg and the chicken situation. Do I live in a culture to understand a culture, or can I understand a culture by listening to people, by speaking to people, by reading books? Is that enough for me to understand a culture, or by watching their movies? I mean, where do you draw a line? I mean, how? Because I cannot live in every country. I have worked in about 18 countries. I've seen almost like 27 or 28 countries. So I do have some experience. I'm not an expert on every culture. Yes, Sarah, you want to take it? No worries.
Yeah, I want to take it because there is no way that we all are going to know everything about all cultures, right? There is no way that we can go, even if I would love to live in all countries, there is no way I'm going to do that, right? I don't know how many countries are there in the world.
There are
Many, hundreds,
170, I think.
200
hundreds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
plus.
200.
So there is no way, but we can get far enough if we make an effort to read. We go back to the book again, or Google. We read, we make an effort. And why? Because we're curious. Okay, and that brings me back to what Jan-Ake said in the beginning, that we have to be curious and we have to be respectful. So if you're curious, that makes us read that book, right? Or Google, and then we always have respect. And then with those things, we don't need to live in the country.
Yeah. Yes, okay, you want to add something?
Yeah, I've been listening to this conversation. I didn't think it was going to go this deep as it has, which I'm very happy about, because when you have some subject like this, negotiation, 1, 2, 3, do this, don't do that, and so on. I think this has been a very good panel discussion. Actually, I'm impressed by my colleagues here and the discussion that we have moved into, because I think that's what it's all about. And I think what we have been talking about, we've been talking about the do's and don'ts. If you go to a new culture, study and learn how does a Muslim think, how does a Christian think, how does a Buddhist think, and so on. In religions and so on, and learns what to do, not to do, and so on. Of course, but that's a part of showing respect. That's part of showing understanding. Oh yeah, people are different from me. The way I do is not maybe the universal correctness. I do it my way, and we do it this way here, and other people do it some other way. So that's number one. But culture is far deeper than that. I have studied one person called Gert Hofstede. He's a Dutch professor in sociology, and he's an anthropologist. And he has actually mapped the cultures of the world. It takes a bit of a time to explain how he did his research, but he has actually divided cultural differences into 4 dimensions, and then he got a 5th dimension when he noticed that the Asian way of thinking was far different from the Western way of thinking. So he added another dimension when it comes to how you view time. And that especially belongs to the Chinese. The Chinese look at time very differently from, I believe, most
The rest of the world.
you in Pakistan and we in the West. The Chinese see time differently, and it then it comes down to values. Very, very deep values. What is beautiful? What is ugly? What is right? What is wrong? What is rational? What is irrational? And all these kind of things. And that's where you have the real cultural differences, and where the real heavy stuff is. So, and again, having an open mind, curiosity, and respect, you usually overcome all these things. So it's
Ali, I want to add,
Please.
something with regards to that culture discussion which we just having. So that culture is we can't say that one country or has one culture. For example, if I talk about country Pakistan, you will agree, Ali, with me that in Pakistan there are multiple cultures. And we I worked in an organization which do projects in all parts of Pakistan and Middle East, and they're very, very remote areas. I remember back in almost 7-8 years ago, we was awarded a project which was we have to deliver at very, very remote location, and we have never worked there. And my company asked me to put together something to orient our project staff culturally so that they don't do something which offend that part. And that's in Pakistan. That's, not another country. But within Pakistan, within a country, you can have different pockets where, one thing which is very, very acceptable at one part of, of that country, and that is not at all acceptable at the other part of the country. So again, you just need to be conscious, and if you are conscious, then you will find ways to understand and respect that part of the culture. But you need to just create, have that conscious effort to understand that culture, and that will probably help. You don't need to, live in there, for years and years in order to understand that. Of course, it will help, but you can't live in 200 different countries.
Yeah,
If you
great.
have to work globally, then you just need to find ways where you can understand their, that part of the world, what is acceptable and what is not.
Great. Sarah, I see you want to
And
add
can I
something.
I
come
just
in
want to
with
add.
one thing? A quick
Yes,
comment to
please.
Ali.
Yes.
Interesting what you said about differences in Pakistan. Go to Italy and do business with people in northern Italy and do business with people in southern Italy, and you see two completely different cultures. So, so again, and that's the same country. And it's not as easy as you just say it's a country having a culture, but within the country you have different. In Sweden you have different. If you go up in the north of Sweden, people think very differently from people in the south.
We
And
come from south.
yeah, we are from the south, Sarah and me, you can say, but we how the northern people think, and it's different. I have lived in South America and I know before I came there I thought South America is a continent. It's more or less like one country. No. I lived in Panama, and then I went to Costa Rica and I lived there for a year after. Two completely different countries, completely
Absolutely.
different. And it's small little countries in Central America, and it was like the difference between Austria and France. It's completely different. So it's very complicated, and to what Ali
Sarah.
said, you gave Pakistan as an example, and regions. It's
Yes,
very
of course.
complicated.
Yes, Sarah, what do you want to add? Because
No, I
with
just
your
want to add.
addition, I would, before you add, I would like a comment here from Sajid Mahmood, which would be directed to you, and then I will take the last question. It is that while doing business negotiations, eye contact is the key feature to create trust on what you're saying is what you believe too. Sarah, so what you add on that, and I would like
Mm.
you to take on this one because personally I do have a little take on it, but I would like your answer.
No, the first one I was trying to add to previous question. We talked about curiosity and respect. I want to add openness. Maybe that is a
Yes.
little bit the same as curiosity, but person can be closed, meaning that my culture is the best and that's the way to do it. And then you can be open, but I guess that's the same with curiosity, right? So I just wanted to add, came to my mind. About your question about eye contact, yeah? A little bit about how important is eye contact during negotiation. That was the question more or less, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
So again, it's very, very much has to do with the culture. In some cultures, like you said before, in Western cultures, we are more used to, we expect more eye contact, where in other cultures, like you said yourselves in Pakistan, little bit less eye contact. Yeah. So eye contact is important, but we shouldn't say, like, I think Asma, I don't know if she's still on. She said before that it's like a basic thing.
Yes.
But it's a bit more complex. I wouldn't say that it's basic. Eye contact is important, but there are a lot of cultural variations with regards to eye contact in cultures, and then it has to do with many things like gender, age, and so forth, right? In some
And
cultures, we need eye contact to feel trust. Yeah, in others cultures, we may get offended if it's too much, and it may be if people feel like you're staring, like you said before yourself, Ali, like you're staring at someone.
yeah. In fact, Claire Rees agrees with Jan-Ake and says that I am from Wales, living in Sweden. We do a lot different things in Wales to Swedes. So this is a comment on the Facebook
Yeah.
she's just mentioned there. Okay, I will go to the
Could
last
I
part.
say one, Ali,
Yeah,
Mohammed, could I come in with one
yeah,
comment to
please,
Sarah?
please.
Sarah mentioned one very important word, openness, which I think is key for win-win negotiations and all these things. And then it's not as simple as say, oh yeah, you got to be open. Just tell them the way it is. Just tell them your economic figures and so on. But that is the problem, that in a negotiation position, people don't trust each other. Oh, I can't say that. Oh, it's a negotiation. Then you cannot reveal that and that and that. And that's where the whole thing with respect and the key word of trust, when you trust each other, when you have built up a relationship of trust, then you can start to become open. And when you can
Excellent.
start to become open, then all the information is on the table, and then you can come up with good agreements for both parties. But as long as it's becoming a game, where you don't trust each other, it's never going to be a win-win solution. Yeah.
Absolutely. And
Sorry, Ali,
I'm
can I?
going
Yep.
to, yes,
It's
Sarah.
one word. Sorry, I just need. It's very important. This input. I want to pick up on Jan-Ake's. In order to be open, so we talked about respect. We talked about curiosity. We talked about openness. I want to add one more thing that is key, because in order to be open, what do we need? We need to be brave, right? It's not easy to be open, but if we are brave enough to take that step, I can assure you that your counterpart, or I don't really like that word, but the person you have in front of you, if you're brave enough to be open, that person will probably open up as well, and you're moving towards a win-win situation. Where if you're
Great.
a coward, you're not brave enough to open, that door is not going to open either. Simple
Excellent.
as that.
Great point, Sarah. We have almost come towards the end. So I would like, there was one question which is sent to one of our viewers who is doing his PhD in cultural and ethnic backgrounds. So his question is for his PhD actually, which I believe is very, very interesting for us as well. And this is going to be a very quick answer from all three of you, one by one, I guess. Role of cultural and ethnic background on individual attitude when in position of authority. And Ali, when it comes to you, he wants to add that specifically the Pakistani culture, when we go and authority, people go in authority here, why do their egos go high? So that's what the normal people think perception is. So I'll repeat the question: role of cultural and ethnic background on individual attitudes when in position of authority. Your 1 minute comment on that, and then we'll close.
Okay, so the role of culture and ethnic background.
Background on individual attitude when in position of authority, and Ali, with you especially related to Pakistani men in authority or women in authority.
Well, when people get the authority, then their real behavior actually reveals. It reflects, who they are, and it has, of course, the culture, the ethnicity, their beliefs. It really make any person, and when that person gets an authority, then actually he or she is actually depicting all his or her beliefs in public. For example, if someone is has got an authority, and he believes in a very autocratic way of doing things, the my way, the highway. And of course, every time, whenever he or she makes a decision, and he has the or she has the authority to make that call, he will not go for that word which Jan-Ake said. He won't go for that consensus, that whether everybody is agreed on that. He or she just take the call, take it or leave it. So that ethnic and culture has really big impact on our decision making when it comes to we have that power of making that call.
Great. Okay, and Sarah, your last inputs on the same topic, and
Yeah.
then we'll wrap it up.
Again, very interesting to Ali. I think we have a lot to talk about, Ali. I agree fully with you. This question that you got is very interesting in a Swedish context. Do you know why? Because in Sweden is particularly averse from many other cultures when it comes to authority. In Sweden, you have, the boss doesn't tell people what to do. The boss asks people, they say, oh yeah, what do you think, Lars? And what do you think, Hedda? And what do you think? And this, and everyone is going to agree and talk a bit here and talk a bit there and so on. And they have meetings, and we have another meeting, and we need one more meeting, and then we take a decision and so on. You will find that, Mohammed and Ali, when you deal with Sarah and me in the future. So now,
Yeah.
and then you wonder, why the hell can't I make a decision, and many people, many business people in Sweden, they come here and they say, how the hell do they get a Volvo car out of the factory when they can't make a decision? They become very frustrated and say, come back another week, we have another meeting, we're going to talk, we're going to discuss, and blah, blah, blah. But, the Volvo car comes out of the factory, and it comes out of the factory in time, good quality, good design, and all the factor, and people say, how the hell did they do that? Because there was no one taking the decisions. There was no one pointing, saying, do you do that, you do that. In some mysterious way, things works out anyway. That is culture, and that is the Swedish culture. And if you ask a Swede to explain how do you do, they can't explain it. They say, oh, this is the way it is, this is the way it happens. And Swedes themselves, they don't notice it. But when people from other countries come in, it doesn't matter if it's South America or Africa or Middle East or Spain or Italy or even Germany, they react immediately and say, well, strange place, you can't make any decisions and nothing happens and this and that, but it does. That is culture. And that is, so it's very deep stuff, but it's interesting.
Great.
Yeah.
So Sajid says actually authority exposes people about their inside behavior. Sarah, that's I think should be your last parting
Yeah.
comment, because Sajid is a very interesting comment.
Because that has to do with the last question a little bit, right? Can you repeat that
Yes.
again, Ali, please?
The last question was that role of
No, the
culture.
very last, yeah.
Yeah. Role of cultural and ethnic backgrounds
Hmm.
on individual attitudes when
Yeah.
in position of authority.
So I think about personal development. That's what comes to my mind. And I like sometimes talking in metaphors. And let's imagine we are all fruits. Let's say all human beings are fruits, and there are different stages. Yeah. So if we are all apples, sometimes in the beginning when you want to pick the apples, but they're not really ready yet, and they are like sour, and then you can get apples that are overly, mature, and then the perfect apples. I don't want to put values. We are all We are all human beings, and we are all on a journey, right? We are on a journey through life, and we keep growing and evolving, and things we meet in life make us grow, right? So I think that depending on where we are at on this journey, we will act differently. We will take that responsibility that comes with leadership in a different way. So I would more connect it a little bit more. I mean, of course, culture also comes in, but most of all for me, the essence in this question has to do with personal maturity and where we are at on this journey and how we can handle being a leader, how confident we are with ourselves. Because no matter which culture we come from, we always need to develop ourselves and our confidence. That's the same in all cultures, right? We need to believe in ourselves. And a leader that believes in him or herself acts very differently from a leader that has no self-confidence. That leader needs to push other people down, right? So that would be
Yes.
my question. Any comments? Any thoughts on that?
Excellent. I think, Sarah, you have summed it up very profoundly. It is like an apple. If we are at the stage where we are sour, or I would add one more thing. If at the time when somebody was watering us or planting our seed, he or she did not properly, make the soil correct, he or she did not properly plant the seed in the right place, sometimes crooked trees do come out, and then crooked trees have crooked fruits, and they might have different opinions. So for me to comment on somebody based on his culture, based on his negotiation skills, based on his nonverbals, I probably would need to understand where that tree was actually deep rooted, and when it came out blossomed, that blossom was actually because of what fertilizer was used, what sand it was in rooted in, where was exactly the location of the seed, and was it purely watered, or it had to fight its way out. I mean, sometimes you see seeds and trees coming out where there was no water, and you still are strange. I mean, you still worry, or just get surprised that how did this come out. I remember I had a picture in my office a few years ago. It was of a I took it from a road, from a tarmac road. There was a small tree at this height, coming out of the in the middle of the road with the tarmac on top. Now, which shows me two things: if you have the will, you will find the way, and you never know that how many what hardships went inside for that tree to come outside the ground. And by that, when the tree is out, it might become sweet, or it might become sour, because the fertilizer was not good, the conditions were, weather was bad, water was less, so it had to survive all those things. So I think this is, in my opinion, this is the summary of the whole discussion today, that culture is the most important aspect. Yes, negotiations we are doing, and by the way, when we talk about negotiations, I talk about everything. You're talking to your child, you're talking to your parents, you're talking to your colleagues. We are negotiating and communicating. They go hand in hand. You can't have, communication is separate and negotiation is separate. It is one after the other. And along with that, the non-verbal is the way to go. Unfortunately, people do teach us that mind your words, but we have never been taught how to actually act our words. Because in body language congruency model, we say about this thing, when I teach my body language course, which is in fact going on right now as well, uh, if your body language is not congruent with your words, you will never be able to win trust, you will never be able to open up, you will never be able to actually have that impact of the first impression, which is happening in less than half a second. Imagine. With these words, I would like to thank Jan-Ake, Sarah, and Ali for a great insightful talk. I know I promised you guys it will be 30 to 45 minutes, but as always, on all my talks, we do ended up by having 1 hour and 14 minutes. And I thank Sajid, Muniza, Asma, Kamal, Kaleem, and all those who joined us during this talk on the in Zoom, as well as who are watching us and will watch after this live on Facebook, for bearing with us on this important topic. And this is going to be the first of the series. I would very quickly, summarize by saying that Jan-Ake and Sara have developed, and together with Ali and myself, we have developed a very, very important and interesting tool that I'm sure all great keen learners would love to implement. A hard, smart negotiating power in their hands, which we'll be disclosing very soon, I guess. So I'm not going to go into details of that. And with this,
You don't
I'm
want to
going
miss
to,
it.
yeah, you don't want to miss it. That's important as well. So I'm gonna thank our sponsors, BBS, the Best Business Solutions, the company who sponsored this thing, so that and who is doing outsourcing. They are into consulting. They are into I don't know, manpower supplies, recruitment, C-level recruitment, trainings, and accounts and taxation, outsourcing business. So if you have any such needs, feel free to contact me, or Ali is here as well from representing the company. So we'll forward that to you to those guys. Thank you very much, my panel, and thank you very much, my viewers. I think we'll close it on now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ali, for having me. Thank you, Sara and Jan-Ake.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
We'll
Ali. Bye-bye.
we'll make
Bye.
great team. Thank you.
Thank you
Monisa.
very much.
All
Bye.
right. Okay.
Bye. Bye.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye bye.